good afternoon, good evening. It depends on whatever time you are listening or watching in. It is another episode of Wir'd Up, particularly episode 3. And this time round, I'm going to be wired up with Gary Brent. So first of all, Gary Brent, thank you for making it into the studio and for taking time out of your morning. I know you had a busy morning, and how are you doing?
I'm so well, Spiu, and thank you very much for letting me come in, and thanks for the invite. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. So, if you do not know who Gary Brent is a cricketer. That is one of his things, one of his babies. I'm sorry to the children, but definitely one of his babies, one of his passions and his loves. One of his loves. He played international cricket and had a career from roughly 1996 to 2008, where he represented Zim, and then he pursued a career in cricket coaching. And a couple of years down the line, he would be found the head coach of the Lady Chevrons, the Zim women's national team, and then now he's the strength and conditioning coach in international clubs for the Gulf Giants, which are based in the UAE, and then also the Gujarat Giants, which is based in India, the WPL. So obviously Giants seem to be your favorite team. But yeah, happy to have you here on the set.
Thanks, Spiu. Thanks very much for having me.
So, how was your weekend, GB? Was it good?
Yeah, weekend was excellent. First and foremost, before I'm anything to do with cricket, I'm a family man, so I had a great opportunity to watch my sons play water polo, and then my daughter came back from the Lowveld. So it's been a great weekend, and I spent some time with the family.
Oh, that's good. Were you able to catch any of the Zim Afro T10 which went over?
Unfortunately, like I said, with my daughter coming out and my son's playing sport, I found it very difficult. With the Gulf Giants, and I met a few of the guys who were playing for the Gulf Giants. I had a coffee with them, which was great. But unfortunately, I didn't get down to Haroe Sports Club, which I'm very sad I didn't. But just with the way things are, the business has been really busy lately. So yeah, it's just been a whirlwind time, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. But once again, another successful year of the Afro T10. It was good to get exposure and experience for the guys. Big names coming in. Warner, I think I saw Owen Morgan there, David Milan, Randy Rassie, Van der Dussen. So good exposure, and also our guys did well. Raza won the cup with his team, captained it, and also a player of the tournament as well. So along with Burl, he had a good stint, Maramani as well. But GB, I just want to ask you, as a cricketer, we've seen the rise of these really shorter forms of cricket, the Afro T10, the things such as like the 100 as well. Are you a fan of these like really short form cricket?
That's a great question. Listen, I mean, Test cricket for me is still the pinnacle, and it will always be the pinnacle because it is a true test of your cricketing abilities. But I think the shorter format is very exciting. I mean, you can't get away from it. It's fun to watch. It's fun to watch. Guys whacking the ball, guys with great skill. I think the bowling skills have really improved. And the fielding is out of this world now. So I think it's a great product. I was very skeptical about T10 especially until last year's Zim Afro T10, which is the first sort of T10 that I experienced, and the amount of skill on show was really something that blew me away. I thought it was phenomenal, and it's a great advert for the game, really. And it does get an audience for cricket that probably wouldn't watch a 5-day game, So yeah. I think it's and obviously that's where all the finances, where the money is. So whether we like it or not, it's here to stay. But I do think it's a great format.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned money and viewership and things that do honestly help cricket run. That's why we have shortened the game to T20. T20 has also it's seen a success. With the likes of the IPL, the SA Betway T20, which is up and coming, and the Caribbean Premier League. It has been proven that short form does work, but also it kind of gets to a point like where do we stop? Because next thing in a couple years' time, might be a T5 or they're like a super over cricket, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and it comes down to viewership. I mean, that's where all the money is. It's all down to TV rights. So a T20 game will take 3 hours, you know, and not many. You know, you don't have a show, for instance, you know, a series that lasts for 3 hours, you know. So, and the T10 now, why it's so popular is that it's done in 90 minutes. So an hour and a half, and it's game, set, and match, you know, which is, you know, and a lot of people can watch that. But yeah, it's, you know, my fear is international cricket. I think it's going to take a hit because, you know, international boards can't afford to pay players what these franchises are being paid, are paying them. Sorry, you know, it's going to be very similar. I feel to football, where, you know, your club is who you play for, and then when you get the time off, you go play for your country. You know, and I think that's where we're looking to sort of going. And I think these franchises are going to give, and it's started already. Giving longer deals to players, and they'll opt for that rather than their country, which, you know, as a purist is you know what I mean, it's something that, but it's the way it's going, and you know, at the end of the day, these guys, they've chosen a cricket as their profession, and they've got mouths to feed, families to support, so you can't knock them for taking that route.
Yeah, well, definitely interesting debate, but just before we get into the nitty-gritty of our podcast, I just want to have a little icebreaker with you. So this little icebreaker is called Top of the Order.
Okay.
Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say a phrase, and one of the players that comes into your mind, which you think correlates best to the phrase, it can be anyone. Whoever you played with, coached with, who you're watching now, who you grew up watching. Doesn't have to be Zimbabwean, whoever it is. One of the questions is quite specific, though. It does.
Okay.
But yeah. So, first question is GB. Who is the most stylish batsman, in your opinion?
Sachin Tendulkar, by a long way.
Sach.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Most intimidating bowler?
Brett Lee. I had the unfortunate experience of facing him quite a few times, and he made me very fearful.
Yeah, he was choppers.
Yeah, he was quick.
The best ground to play at?
Harare Sports Club.
Harare Sports Club. Yeah, that's good.
It's, you know, I've played a lot outside of Zim, but playing at home and having a crowd who actually is on your side was amazing. A great feeling.
Yeah, I know. It's always good to see the Zim crowd coming and turning up for.
Amazing. They're a great crowd. Yeah. They really are.
It is a good crowd to play in front of. Your most fearless cricketer?
Ooh. That's a good question, actually. It'll probably Steve Waugh. I think he invited conflict into his life, you know, and he looked like he was fearless. So I think I say that because, you know, I was with Zimbabweans, you know, a lot of them were given how fearless they were, but I knew the truth, if you know what I mean. So because I was in the change room with a lot of them, so it was a show, but he looked like he was a fearless guy and someone who he was a great role model, I think.
Yeah. All right, and then my last one: most innovative player in the modern game.
AB de Villiers, I think.
AB,
okay.
I
think he's
that's a good shot.
he's changed what batting looks like. You know, the V was always in front of you, but now it's behind you. So I think he's certainly created a different way of playing.
Mm-hmm. How would you feel about if someone said Steve Smith?
I could see that. I think he's very unorthodox, which is probably the same thing, but I do feel he's more traditional, you know, as in he hits the ball along the ground. He accesses areas where are traditional areas, whereas AB accessed areas that weren't there before.
Yeah, well, Mr. 360.
Correct, yeah.
So, yeah, thank you for indulging in that little icebreaker. So now as we head into the bulk of the podcast, we'll start with your international career. So, as I mentioned before, it spanned from about 1996 to 2008. So let's start at the beginning. In 1996, you've just turned 20, and you've been called up to play for Zimbabwe against Pakistan. Can you recall what that feeling was like, being called up to play for Zim at just such a young age, at 20?
Yeah, I might even show my age here because our telephones weren't working. We didn't have cell phones in those days. So one of the guys from Zimbabwe Cricket had to drive out to my farm and tell me that I'd been selected.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
So, and you can imagine, I was obviously at home with my folks, and I was actually working for my dad at the time, and that was just the most amazing news, and it's just unbelievable feeling. To be, it's obviously a lot of disbelief, and then the realization that this was going to happen, and then to have a tour of Pakistan with who were then my heroes, Dave Houghton, Heath Streak, Andy Flower, Grant Flower, these guys who I'd played against them, but they were still, and now suddenly I'm sharing a change room with them. It was so different. It was really cool, and they're just great people. But it was a dream come true, and it was also a realization for me that this is probably what I wanted to do with my life. Like I said, I was working for my dad, and it was a big factor in me changing careers.
Okay, so what career were you looking to go into when you were working for?
Well, I was going to carry on the family business. My dad was a tobacco farmer and doing horticulture, and I was just going to carry on with that. And I'd left school and gone into that sort of that field. But he was very gracious enough to give me a lot of time. He knew my love was for cricket, because I used to hit mud clods in the fields. So. And so he gave me as much time off as I needed, which was really good. So I could come into practice twice a week, play on the weekends. So it was like I said, it was a great blessing for me that. And then when this came about, it was a fulfillment of what he sort of saw, that this probably was going to be the way I was going to go.
Okay, and so you got the call up, you then went and toured Pakistan. How was that experience in terms of your performance? I mean, 20 debut. Was it a good performance? A bit of it in the middle? Or?
Yeah, it was a very unremarkable performance. I think I went for 25 runs in 5 overs, no wickets. I think I scored 1 run. I faced Wazir Makram. I think I faced 5 balls of his, and I never laid bat on one. Played Suckline Mushtaq, and I ran down the wicket, which I've never ever done before. It was just talk about pressure. Pressure was something that I wasn't really used to, and playing in front of a fairly large crowd in Pakistan, and it was an incredible tour. But the game itself was in Quetta. It was very unremarkable. We ended up losing, but I was very disappointed with my performance. But it was just one of those things that it was my debut, and I probably didn't enjoy it as much as I probably should have. I blame myself for us losing, and it was just such a. I was very immature in those days.
Yeah. Okay. And so, you also mentioned that you played with Dave Houghton, and you looked up to Andy Flower. How was that transition from just playing club level, playing with these guys, but not actually being the same team, playing club level, then transitioning into a professional cricketer on the international scene at that young age?
Yeah, I mean, it literally was that. I mean, I was playing club cricket, and then suddenly you get called up into international cricket, and the gulf is huge. Like I said, I'm playing against Wazim and Wakar, and these guys were in their prime in those days as well, and I wasn't good enough. And the reason I did get selected was that we had a whole lot of injuries. I think there were 4 or 5 injuries to bowlers, so that's how I got the call up. And Dave Houghton, played at the same club as I did, so I obviously got to play with Dave. But playing with Andy and Grant, and just seeing how these guys go about their work, Heath Streak, Andy Flower, Guy Whittle, Paul Strang, these guys were great professionals, and they were great people to learn from. And like I said, that was when the penny dropped for me. It was I want to do this more often. I want to be around these guys. I want to work like they do. So that was the turning point for me. It was a phenomenal experience, but one I look back on with I don't know, mixed emotions, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, you said you felt your performance wasn't the best. However, you still were kept on the squad, and how was that going out to the training, the practices?
Yeah, so I actually took a bit of a hiatus from there because, like I said, there was a lot of injuries. Guys got better, but I made my way back into the team because, once you get that taste, it makes you work a bit harder, and you're thinking, hang on a second, this is what I want to do, and what do I need to do to get back in there? So I worked, and that was my one thing that I probably got from my dad was a bit of a work ethic. He made sure that I wasn't afraid of work, and I think that really helped me in my career. So things like fitness and stuff like that was something that I knew that I could control. So I made sure that I was certainly one of the fitter guys in the squad as much as I could. But skill wise, I wasn't as good. I never bowled fast. And my batting, at school I was a batter, but once I left school, I became a bowler, and purely on my part, I didn't practice enough, because I was doing more bowling than I was batting, and I was in those days I could make excuses that I was tired. So, like I said, I was pretty immature, but that feeling of playing and wanting to get back into that side and wanting to be around those guys again was a great motivating factor for me.
Yeah, and so. Your career roughly spanned 12 years, a little bit over a decade, and lots of highs, lows as well. Some challenging games, some good performing games, but let's look at one of your highs. That match where it was 2007 against Australia, and I can see the smile there, good memories. And Zimbabwe had stunned Australia in that World T20. Can you walk us through the match, or rather, first of all, what was the conversation in that change room before getting onto the field, if you can remember it?
To be honest, I don't remember much of the conversation before, but we're up against Australia. We're up, normally when Zim play, we're up against a side that's looks on paper stronger than us, and certainly on that day they were. But even in warm up, we looking across at their side. I don't think they took it as seriously as maybe they should have. And the shorter the format, if you let somebody else get in, it's difficult to claw that back, because it's such a short game. And we ended up bowling first, and getting Matthew Hayden out, get Adam Gilchrist, for very low scores, and the wicket really suited us. It was in Cape Town. It was very slow. So the ball wasn't coming on at all, and obviously the Australians are very used to the ball, coming onto the bat a lot. And we've got medium pace bowlers again; they're used to fast bowlers. And there's a bit of movement on the wicket, and Elton got a early breakthrough, and all the seamers actually got quite a few early breakthroughs, and I never forget Ricky Ponting trying to slog me into next week, and got a top edge, got caught at third man, a brilliant catch. Yeah. And it was one of those days where everything we did came right. Yeah. Like I remember Vusi, diving one-handed, hitting one stump from point. Brendan, taking a catch that was way out, underarming and hitting the stumps. And every catch we took, I never forget. I don't know, someone hit the ball down to mid-on, I dived across to stop it, and hit my hand and just rolled onto long off. So it looked like I had palmed it onto him, but I just tried to stop the ball, and I only got one. You know what I mean? Just everything that could have gone right went right. BT did some amazing stumpings, and then when we went out to bat, we had a fearless approach, because we had nothing to lose. Yeah. They got 130, I think it was, and this was our one opportunity that if we were ever going to beat Australia, this was the time. And the guys dug in, the guys really batted well. BT, obviously, he was man of the match, and he batted exceptionally well. But it was an incredible feeling. And to be in South Africa, because South Africa and Australia have a love-hate relationship. So if someone goes and beats Australia, the South Africans absolutely, really celebrated that win with us. So it was great. The crowd was amazing. The hotel that we went back, had a huge big thing for us. So it was just a phenomenal day.
Yeah. So your statistics, bowling stats from that day, bowled your full spell of 4 overs, just 19 runs, and 2 wickets, one of them being Ricky Ponting as well. So you look back on that day and your performance. In terms of your performance, would you say that was your best game, or was there one that sticks out more in your head?
Yeah, I mean, that game does stick out. Another game, I played an ODI in Bangladesh, and the ball was moving, and that was my favourite. I got 4 for 22, I think, in that game. That was one of my favourite games, because I was able to swing the ball both ways, which is not often happens in the subcontinent. And I mean, those two stick out for me as my sort of best performances with the ball.
Yeah, and then so you also mentioned that in high school you were a batsman, but once you finished school, you didn't really focus on that much, batting that much. However, you still could hold a bat and you still could play your shots. Was there any point in time where you did well with the bat during your career? Is there a game that comes to mind?
Yeah, a lovely game. So in Bulawayo, playing against South Africa, I think we were lots. We were not many for lots, and I went in batting at 9. I think batted with Elton, and we got a 200 partnership. So I ended up getting I don't know what it was, 60 something. But that was certainly my best innings that I ever played. I remember pulling in Mackay and Tini for 6 again, which I say that not because to boast, but I was very bad at the short ball. But on that day, Robin Brown, who was our coach, was doing a lot of work with me leading up to that, because I didn't really have a technique against short fast bowling. So he helped me a lot, and it just like clicked that day, and everything I tried came off, and I just loved it. It was a really good day. I loved that.
Yeah. And so we've touched on your highs of your international cricketing career. Now let's look a little bit more at the lows. So as I said, your career spanned like 12 years about. But in the middle of that, there was a time where you did step away from playing international cricket. What transpired there? What made you decide that? Not necessarily drastic, but that drastic decision.
Yeah, it was a drastic decision. We as a player body, had felt that things weren't being done properly, and so we decided to step away, and unfortunately, for 2 years I lost out on international cricket, and I look back on it with a lot of regret. I still think what we stood up for were the right things. I just think the way we went about it probably was the wrong way. It was a sad time for Zimbabwe cricket. I think it was a difficult time, and a massive low for me, because it went through a stage where it was difficult to support the family. I'd started a young family by then, and then financially, it took a major hit. So that's where my coaching career started. Funnily enough, I ended up coaching a young girl, and she was the reason why I became a coach. She was just fantastic in terms of she just listened to everything I said, and she did. Obviously, she was successful doing that, but it was just she was so coachable, which was so good, and I just loved that, and I realized that maybe this is something that maybe I could do, and so when I did come back, it was a great opportunity for me because I knew that coaching was going to be something that I did. Okay. So I actually started a list of things that I would do, things that I wouldn't do, the way coaches either talked or did things, and that was a really valuable time for me. So at the time it was very difficult, but in hindsight, a really good thing for me.
All right. And when you did step away from cricket, did you ever think you would come back? Were you willing to come back if things changed, or was it more like, no, I'm closing this door and
Yeah, I think I'd closed the door on that, and the reason why I came back really was obviously I was struggling, but then also I was butting to a friend of mine who I had put forward to Kevin Curran, who was the coach then. Said, listen, have a look at this guy. He's a good little bowler, and he did really well. And he was, I chat to him and he said, yeah, I'm doing really well. I've got wickets this year, and I go, oh, geez, okay. So I thought, well, if he can do it, maybe I've still got something in me, So I the thought started going in my mind, and one thing, that biggest regret of my career then was that I'd never played in the World Cup. There was a World Cup in the next couple of years, so I thought, well, let me try and give that a crack. And I ended up playing two, so I ended up playing in the T20 and then obviously the 50 over game. So and that was just a sort of bucket list item that I could tick off, which I was very proud to be able to do.
Okay. And so kind of touching on that topic of you stepping away from cricket, Zim cricket had seen its fair share of scandals, governance issues, players felt not being treated fairly, mishandling of money. Would you say that some of those scandals and issues have negatively affected the growth and development of cricket in Zimbabwe?
I think at that time, I think there was a time where it did affect us, yes. But I'm hoping we're through that now. So the current coaching staff and that is a phenomenal team that I think Zimbabwe Cricket have put together. With Dion Ibrahim coming back and Justin Simmons. So I'm confident that things are going to go from strength to strength, and what Dave Harton did with the team. So I do feel that there's a huge turnaround, and people are wanting to be part of Zimbabwe, Team Zimbabwe again, which is great, which maybe wasn't there in the past, but I do think that we certainly making strides forward.
Okay, all right, and so I think that's a pretty good answer. So eventually, after you managed to play your 2 World Cups, you eventually did close the door, and you retired from international cricket, and then you pursued your coaching. A couple of years down the line, you would also be one of the coaches of the Rangers. One of the founders is right?
That's right, yep.
One of the founders of the Rangers. How has that been, seeing the growth of the Rangers from just being a league, a part of the Saturday Booze League, and now recently this year, a month ago, winning the MPL T20?
Yeah, it's a 4 or 5 year plan that's come together. We started out as a sort of just a young cricketers, similar to an academy side really, and giving, we had a few guys from the UK, giving them an experience in cricket, and giving some of our local guys an experience in what it takes to become a professional cricketer. So and we actually played in the first class system for a bit, but unfortunately didn't have a great season, just through whatever reasons. But then that fell away, so we had to restart the sort of Rangers again, and like you said, through sort of the friendly league, and then we applied to become a second league. Took 2 years in second league to get promoted to first league, and then from first league, we had an incredible year this year. We came third in the 45 over competition, and we won the T20. So it's been a long journey, but it's been quite a pleasing one so far, and we've got a long way to go. We certainly haven't achieved what we want to achieve, and yes, the results look great, but the results on the field are not necessarily our goals only. There's results off the field that we need to look. We need to really prepare and have a self-sustaining club, that promotes young cricketers coming through. I think that's really important. Not just winning competitions. That's certainly not what we're about. And we've got a great group of leaders in the Rangers setup now. I'm confident that we certainly going in the right direction. We're certainly not there, but we're going in the right direction.
Okay. And so while you were coaching at Rangers, you eventually did get a phone call, and you were asked to be the head coach of the Lady Chevrons. So how was that experience coming into that role? Because up until you had coached our women's team, it struggled. You could see issues with like the technique, the way they played, their structures. So stepping into that role, what was your mindset like, and what was the goal to further cricket?
Yeah, I must admit, I was very apprehensive to start off with because I didn't quite know a lot about the women's game. I'd coached the Harare Sports Club ladies team in some club competitions, quite a few years before. But it was my first sort of into full-time coaching of a ladies team. So I was lucky enough to have a sort of month before I knew that I was taking on the job that this was probably where I was going to go. So I could watch the franchise competitions, and really have a look at what areas we needed to sort of hone in on, and what areas we could make sure that we could get better at. So that was really useful. I had a friend of mine from the UK come out as well and give me some great advice. And I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to be able to speak to like the England batting coach for the ladies and just people in that area and get their sort of thoughts on how to go forward, and it was valuable information. And then luckily got a really good team that around me with the ladies, and we try to implement that. There's a few things that needed to change, just obviously just how they went about stuff, and try to bring a more professional sort of era to the girls and to the ladies. Sorry, I was pretty happy with the way things went.
Okay, and you also look at the women's cricket, not just our national team, but as a whole, starting right from the grassroots all the way up into the senior team. There were, I'm sure, a couple of challenges trying to restructure and out with the old, in with the new, with some of the women. What were some of those challenges you had to overcome?
The major challenges for me was getting the girls to practice more consistently, and treating themselves as professionals. What had happened in previously was that we'd have camps. So we had a tour coming up. We'd have a sort of month or 3-week sort of camp before that. So trying to get out of that mindset and say, let's do it throughout the year. Okay. And those camps are just they're icing on the cake. When we get the team together and we just think about tactics. Whereas everything was trying to get fitted in that 3-week period. So fitness was trying to get fit in there. Everything was trying to get. So what happened was the workloads went through the roof. Okay. So injury counts were very high. Player burnout was very high. So what we needed to do was a more sustainable thing over a longer period of time. And then, like I said, just using those sort of camps as more top-ups, trying to get that sort of thinking through. That took a bit longer than I thought it would. And then, just getting everyone just to think of themselves as professionals, because when you get paid to play a game, that's what you are. And just the way you go about everything in life, and there's lots to being a professional sportsman, and just trying to educate everybody on that process.
All right. And so over the recent years, we've seen the rise of women playing in cricket, and it's been great to watch. There's now the WPL. There's now the women versions of the World Cups, the T20s, the one days, and so women cricket is developing. And you've experienced this firsthand from coaching the women. But would you say you are pleased, or are you pleased with the growth of the women's cricket currently happening and developing in Zim at the moment?
Globally, the game is going crazy. It's going from strength to strength. And in terms of finance, what's the ladies are being paid the same as men. So in terms of a career option, I think it's massive. we are certainly getting there in Zim. We are, a little bit maybe, slower, but it's certainly picking up momentum. From what happened even when I was starting to what's happening now is a huge change. Our under-19s are playing a lot of cricket, which is great. Which they feed so much into our national side. And we're seeing some of our under-19s doing exceptionally well for our national side as well. So, but it's also developing below that, and I think I'm certainly pushing that from my end, and anyone that bothers to listen, I'm pushing the ladies' game, because it's a huge avenue, and it is a career option for ladies that not necessarily to play it at school to become a cricketer, but just to give someone an option if they're very good at it. Why not? Why not give them that option?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's definitely has grown, because even since when I was in junior school, there wasn't much of it. But last year, definitely the junior school system. Last year there was a Kenyan team which came towards Zim, and they had a girls team, but none of the Zim schools had anything. So a couple schools banded together, Razawi, Hellenic, Springvale or Fordia, and they put together a girls team, each from their own schools. But it's good to see that it's now slowly being recognised and implemented in junior schools. I'm not sure what the others are doing, but I know Hellenic has still got girls cricket. They've still got girls cricket, and they're still looking to improve it and grow the sport as a whole. And so, what would you, if you could devise like a plan sort of to grow the women's game, cricket, what would be your first starting point?
That's a great question, because we can't just start off with having women's teams when no one plays, and it's very difficult. So my first sort of suggestion to everyone that I've spoken to so far is just let the girls play in the boys' teams. They're allowed 2 years above their age. So if you're under 15, you can play if you're under 15, you can play in the under 13 team, and that's fair. And just let them play. If they're good enough to play in the A team, then let them play in the A team. If they're not quite in the B team or the C team, and get them playing cricket. When you get more interest and you can actually have a team, well, then you start a team. But we've got to start somewhere, and I think that's just the easiest way. It's just giving them the opportunity, because a lot of the schools that you mentioned play cricket anyway. So it's not a big change. Is to just, instead of someone going and doing another sport, they just go play cricket, which is being played anyway, which has already got a timetable, which has already got everything that's going for it anyway. So there's nothing else has to happen. It's just letting them be able to access that. That in itself has been a challenge, because we still got people who think that maybe cricket is not a ladies' sport, and hopefully we can get past that sooner rather than later. And then grow the game from there. I know Chisapiti are investing in cricket, which is they're an all-girls school, so but they're going to have to start from scratch, and we're here to help, and that's as part of the ACHPP, which I'm a part of. We really want to help that. But I'm very very optimistic on where the ladies' game is going in Zimbabwe. I think there's a big push that's coming, and in the next 2 years, I think we'll see a very different landscape to what we see now.
Okay, and so now focusing back on your time at the Lady Chevrons, I guess for a coaching role, it was relatively short, 2 years, and then you eventually move on to what you're doing now. Why did you decide that it was time to move on to something else?
It was a very very difficult decision. I had an amazing time with the Lady Chevrons, and it was a phenomenal time for me. Unfortunately, being an international coach takes you away from home.
Okay.
And I was spending a lot of time away from home. Whether just even our franchise competitions would be in Kwekwe, which is I've got 6 kids, so it's a lot of kids, So and my wife needs help with that, and so I got an amazing opportunity to coach. Like you said, in the franchise leagues, which is a very short period of time. And that was unfortunately the way I had to go about it, because like I said, for me, family comes first, and as much as I'm just so thankful for Zimbabwe Cricket for giving me that opportunity, and the ladies themselves, just giving me their time and their efforts, and that was an amazing time for me. But like I said, family comes first, and I had to move on, and as sad as it was, but I'm very confident in Walter Chawaguta, who's taken over. He's a phenomenal coach, someone who coached me, funnily enough, and he was one of our coaches when we won at the T20 World Cup.
Okay.
But he's just a good man, and the girls respond really well to him. So I'm very confident that he's a great guy to take the women's game forward.
All right. And so you decided to move on from the women's team, and as you said, you're now gone from a head coach to a strength and conditioning coach in the franchise leagues. How did that opportunity come about? Because head coaching and strength and conditioning are a little bit different. Still part of the technical team, but a little bit they focus on different aspects. How did that opportunity come about?
Yeah, great question. I had been, obviously, everybody wants to be able to try get into IPL.
Yeah.
Whether you're a player, coach, or whatever you are, and just getting that opportunity. So I was a couple of years ago, and I'm very good friends with Andy Flower, and he gave me an opportunity to maybe do something in one of the leagues that he was in. Unfortunately, COVID hit, so that really messed things up. And then, see, fitness has always been a part of my life. Like I said, it was a controllable for me, and I really got into fitness. I got into CrossFit as well. So I actually ended up owning my own gym. My wife and I ran it from home. I've always loved that side of it, and been very sort of passionate in that side of it. And then again, out of the blue, Andy phoned me and said, "Listen, would you like to be our S&C for the Gulf Giants in the UAE in the ILT20?" And I said yes before I thought about it. So it's just an opportunity to work with alongside him is just incredible, and it has been. This will be my third year coming up, and he's an incredible coach, and still stats wise the most successful franchise coach, and I can see why. He demands excellence from everybody around him, and I love being in that environment. I've had to obviously up my skills as a strength and conditioning coach, and that's been 3 years in the making as well. Done a lot of courses and stuff like that, and I had a really good mentor also. His name's James Pipe. He was the physiotherapist at the Gulf Giants, and he helped me a lot.
Okay.
In that transition from sort of coaching into S&C, and I don't want to move away from coaching at all, but S&C has given me the opportunity to rub shoulders in these leagues. So I'm very, very grateful for that.
Okay. And so you moved from Zimbabwe, which is it is a cricketing nation, to the UAE, where it's upcoming. They do have the financial support for it. But how's that experience being, trying to uplift a sort of league in a country where cricket is still growing?
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible league. So I get to spend 6 weeks in Dubai, and then we go to Sharjah and Abu Dhabi, and it's an amazing country. The crowds, like you said, they're not very big, but it's the second in terms of money revenue from TV rights to the IPL, and that's because it's TV rights again, you see, and they sell those TV rights around the world. And you've got 9 internationals playing with 2 local UAE players. There's 4 UAE players in the squad, and what an incredible experience for those UAE guys, and you can see already what it's done to the UAE cricket, just in terms of their exposure.
Okay.
They're certainly coming up the ranks. It's been, and I think in certain times that might even go to three. Three have to play per team, and there's 6 teams. So that's, their whole team plus some extras are getting involved and being around, all these international players, and these international players are, the best of the best. I mean, there's some incredible people, incredible professionals. They know exactly about their game, but what really struck me in with these is how good people they are and how they're willing to share their knowledge, and that was something that really took me by surprise. And I think the UAE are really benefiting from that experience, and I think their national team will just get stronger and stronger, and as I suppose the country will get more and more into cricket, and I think it's working. The vision that they had to start this league is certainly coming. Like I said, we're only into the 3rd year. Something like this will take a few more years, but they're doing incredible stuff.
Okay, and GB, so just as we wrap up here, have you got any words for your players at the Golf Giants or the Gujarat Giants? Because I know you're the S&C coach. You making sure they're still staying on top of that?
Yeah, I just keep fit. And my big thing is in anything is just consistency. Yeah. If we can manage to stay consistent, and even if it's just a little bit, I do it myself with learning. Just every day try to do something. 15, 20 minutes, which doesn't take a lot of time. Yeah. Same thing with fitness. You can get a lot done in half an hour, and if you just do that, the results at the end of time. Unfortunately, it's not a fast. It doesn't happen overnight, but accumulating over a year, over 2 years, you can accumulate some great things. Physically as well as mentally. So yeah, for me, it's just keep consistent. That's a nice message. I try to tell as many people as I can.
Yeah. Well, GB, once again, thank you for coming to the studio, making time for me. I know that I'll now be tuning into the WPL and the ILT20, making sure to look out for the giant teams. Brilliant. But I've been wired up with GB, and GB, have a good rest of your day, and yeah.
Spiro, thank you very much. It's been an absolute honour to be on your show, and all the best, and thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, that's it for episode 3. I'll be seeing you guys next week. More authentic, more Zimbabwean, more fun and interesting people to come along the way, and that's Wir'd Up.